Welcome to TORAH Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 40 of Controversial Issues with Rabbi Chaim Coffman from the Holy Land. Welcome back, sir. Welcome back. Don't smoke crack. There you go.
All right. Step on your mother's back.
So today we're going to be discussing the topic of Lashon Hara. We've covered this before, evil speech, gossip, if you will. We're going to cover it more on an isolated topic altogether, just because we want to cover just a different variation of what the consequences of it are to the person who's doing it, how it hurts others. The picture I selected for the show today actually showed like teenagers that were gossiping and whispering behind each other's back, and how it really affects people. And and whether it's true or false, at the end of the day, evil speech is evil speech, or is it? So at what point is it considered acceptable, or shall I say permissible, not acceptable? With that whole context, there's a lot of things that really should be exposed about it, just because a lot of people, they don't even realize that some people are doing it so, like, how would you say, passively, that they themselves don't even realize that maybe they're doing it, And so it's just one of those things I want to kind of go over, the really obvious things about Lashon Hara, which is evil speech, or gossip, if you will, and also the things that are not so obvious that maybe a lot of us, even like myself, are unaware of. Maybe I'm doing Lashon Hara like against my kids or something when I'm talking to them about, what David did today? Is that even necessary? I mean, there's a lot of aspects that there's so many points of it that we've never discussed, and most people don't ever discuss. And so that's what I want to go over today. So with that said, Rabbi, how are you doing? I said, how are you doing this week? That was not purposeful.
My name is Chaim, right? That's German CH.
That's funny, right?
Yeah, a lot of different aspects. I think that that you mentioned that people aren't aware of. So we'll mention the obvious. The obvious first. When someone speaks Lashon Hara, they kill 3 people. They kill themselves for actually saying it. They kill the person listening to it, because the person listens to it, accepts it as fact, right? And it kills the third person who you're speaking about, even if there's no damage caused, right? Many people think that as long as there's damage caused, then that's where you transgress. But even if that person, I would say it right in front of his face, and I wouldn't be afraid, and this and that. It doesn't matter. I would say it if he's right here, right in front of me. Right? It's still 100%, 100% going to be forbidden. And the kicker is this something that most people don't know, and that is even if Lashon Hara is true, even if we know, everybody knows it, right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, it's all over the internet and every newspaper. It's clear as day. This is what happened, right? No mishaps, no not hearing it third hand or fourth hand or whatever. This is absolute fact. Am I allowed to repeat it?
Right.
And the answer is you're only allowed to repeat it if there's a purpose. If there's no purpose, you're not allowed to just go around saying it for no reason. Now, people may say, well, this is why Lashon Hara for Noahites really shouldn't apply. Right? It may not be a good moral thing to do for a non-Jew to speak about others, whether a Jew or a non-Jew. But at the end of the day, it's not something that is, it's not something necessarily that is logical. Why? Because if you'd ask most people, a person goes to work, they take a break, they're all at the water cooler, what are they doing? Either speaking about sports, entertainment, or about everybody else, right? Or about other coworkers or whatever. So if you were to say, okay, stop, it's 100% forbidden, you're not allowed to speak against anybody else, they're going to think you're off your cotton picking head. They're going to say, what are you crazy? This is what everybody does. This is a natural thing. I'm not hurting anybody. This person will never find out. Let's say, for argument's sake, this person will never find out. You don't have, you're not wiretapped. You're not recording it, right? So you're not hurting anybody. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. But what's going to happen is that person's going to be diminished in other people's eyes. It may not cause them any damage, any livelihood problems, or anything else, but it's something that everybody does. And even though it's something that everybody does, I would think it's common, right? It's extremely common. And therefore, why, isn't it logical that it should apply to a non-Jew as well? So what do we find out? We find out there are other laws associated with the laws of speaking Lashon Hara that if you would ask anybody and say, if I know this is true, doesn't matter if it's speaks bad against somebody, everybody knows it's true. Am I allowed to repeat it? Everybody will say, if everyone knows it's true, then it doesn't matter if you repeat it or not. That 100% is Lashon Hara, which most people are not aware. Not only that, but it doesn't, even if it's permissible, there are certain conditions where a person's allowed to speak Lashon Hara. If someone is causing damage, right? Causing, whatever type of damage, right? You're allowed to turn them in, right? The person's a menace to society, right? How many times have I heard stories of, people dating where, there was certain information that one side did not give over to the other, like the person's a manic depressant. That's pretty important information at some point to give over if a man and a woman are meeting for the sake of marriage. No, I can't say anything because it's Lashon Hara, right? So obviously we have to know when to say it. You have to have proper rabbinic guidance, but that's, that transgresses the 614th commandment of don't be stupid. How in the world can the other person not know this person's a manic depressant, and after they get married, they wake up the next day and they find out this person's on pills, no one ever said anything. Oh, I can't say anything, it's Lashon Hara. Right? There's an obligation to protect the other side. Now the question is, when does that when does a medical condition have to be given over? Okay, that's a whole discussion. When to give over that information. At the same time, it cannot be withheld.
Okay.
Right? It has to be given over at some point. Doesn't necessarily have to be given over at the beginning, right? But it cannot be withheld. If you find out, you find out after the fact, a few months later, this person's on medication, and they were bipolar, no one ever told anything, and this person has some sort of, hallucinogenic, who knows what. He said, what did I get myself involved in? No one ever told me, right? That is irresponsible, right? So then people will say, no, you can't say anything, it's Lashon Hara. Do me a favor, learn the laws, right? You have to learn the law. The laws are complex, I agree, but it doesn't matter. Something like this, you have to have proper rabbinical authority to know when you're allowed to say things, when you're not allowed, to say things. The Chofetz Chaim never said you're not allowed to talk. The Chofetz Chaim said you have to know how to talk. So a student of the Chofetz Chaim, Moshe Schneider, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, he had a yeshiva in London during World War II, and produced many Torah giants of the last generation, my Rebbe included. And he asked the Chofetz Chaim the following question. He said, according to what the Chofetz Chaim wrote about the laws of Lashon Hara, how come you didn't say that someone who speaks Lashon Hara, someone who's an habitual speaker, not he just made a mistake here and there, someone constantly speaks Lashon Hara, what's the punishment? The punishment is you lose your portion of the world to come. So Moshe Schneider asked his Rebbe, the Chofetz Chaim, how come you didn't put that in the book? How come you didn't write that? Right? So the Chofetz Chaim answered, 100% that's true. If a person's habitual speaker of Lashon Hara, it's brought down that they won't see, it's one of the four groups that God will not have any connection with in the next world.
Okay, let me pinpoint a few specific questions, more than just questions, examples. I think the best way for me to get the best out of this, and I'm just going to have to assume a lot of people are like me, even though they're probably not. But I think going through a wide variety of examples would be a really good way of absorbing this overall message. And I'm going to give you the first example I'm going to give you is going to be actually the first few. It's going to be to have to do with children, meaning anybody under the age of 18. I won't say any specific age. But for example,
first of all, we're women. Second of all,
okay, Saruya Magan says. She said, yes, we are like you. Thank you. You're so sweet. Okay. She says, she mentioned a point. We cannot withhold information about child neglect. or an elder neglect or abuse, theft of things of that kind. So
Right.
there's probably more than a dozen type of examples we could hit on that, but I don't want to get too crazy on that one because we got a lot of ground I want to cover. But just in general, like if you like if someone has been discussed with child abuse, for example, if you know someone, maybe you're a school teacher and you know this kid keeps coming to school with bruises and all this other stuff. I mean, at what point do you go? I mean, I don't know if that's the greatest example. What's in my mind is more like, okay, people
what if
already
a kid comes
know.
home and says he was molested?
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
What if a kid comes home and he says he was molested?
Right. Okay. So
That's unfortunately more of a common case.
okay. So what's the proper protocol in a situation like that?
So the protocol is that you have to verify. You have to verify with the kid, right? We know what exactly happened, and then you're allowed to go to the authorities. That's not something you push away. They may try and scare him. They may try they might try and keep the teacher. Who knows what, But at the end of the day, something like that. That has to be nipped in the bud. That's something that you're allowed to go to the authorities for. Now, going to secular authorities is a whole discussion also. You're not allowed to just go to secular authorities for the sake of going to secular authorities. If it's something the person's a menace, right? Something like this is a pretty serious accusation, right? It's not something that they're going to take lightly. They have to investigate it, right? And unfortunately, there are a lot of cases. There are a lot of very sick people out there that have ruined people's lives, ruined families, etc. So something like that, someone who's a menace like that, you see a kid coming to school with bruises, you try and investigate that. You have to have good cause. It can't just be like you're trying to single someone out or
Right.
whatever. But you see something like that, you see malnourishment, right? Kid hasn't been eating.
Right.
Something like that. These things, these are pretty, neglect, abuse, physical abuse,
Right.
molestation. These things you don't wait for.
Let's.
I mean, now I'll just give one example. Years
Okay.
ago, these things got pushed under the rug. But there's so much awareness today that it's something that has to come to the forefront. And a kid comes home and says like this and that happened, you investigate it. That you don't leave something like that, because one of the worst things that can happen for a kid, I mean, the self-esteem is probably going to be shot as it is. But if he comes home and tells you a story and you say, "Nah, don't worry about it, it's fine," that kid's going to be crushed.
Okay.
I know somebody
Right.
that this happened to, and he was never believed.
Okay. Let's make it.
As a kid.
Let's use this, a situation of, let's say you're a parent or a school teacher or a neighbor's parent, and you caught a kid stealing. Okay, so or let's even like at school, what would be permissible for like a teacher, for example, and say, hey, I'm pretty sure William just stole the pencil off my desk and took something out of my drawer, but maybe she even saw me literally do it. Can she go around telling all the teachers in the school, hey, look out for this kid because he's a thief? Or does she have to address me first and try to fix it herself first? And if it gets fixed, then she shouldn't say anything to anybody? Or use that as an example.
The best thing is trying to, probably try to fix it in-house, meaning not necessarily, make it 100% public knowledge, see where it goes, but certainly the kid has to be disciplined. That's for sure, and the parents should be told. Again, circumstances are that they saw it happen. It wasn't hearsay. It wasn't something that someone, was a third party or whatever. They saw it happen. The kid swiped it, right? We'll make it very easy. The parents have to be brought in. Parents, have to have a discussion with the parents and figure out what to do. Does the thing, have to be publicized to everyone? I don't necessarily know it has to be publicized. I don't know if it has to be publicized to everyone, but certainly the people in know have to know. The principals should know, right? Do the other teachers have to know? I don't know if the other teachers necessarily have to know. The principal definitely should know. The parents definitely should know. More than that, I'm not sure. I would bring it up. That would that may kill the kid in the process also.
Right.
There's not necessarily a reason, if the kid, let's say, had other issues,
Sure.
he was a sexual predator. that you have to warn everybody about.
Right.
If he steals, okay, I'm not saying that it's permissible,
Right.
but there are different levels of different things that some things are much more severe, things are less. If it's something, all right, stealing is important. I don't think you have to bring in the cavalry necessarily on it. Something else, I would bring in the cavalry because this person's a menace, and you gotta stop it where it is before other people get other people get abused in the process.
Right. Okay. So let's shift it down a similar path. One thing that's coming to mind now is like at home, for example. I'll give you an example that happened today. Okay, so my son did something, and I just so happened to have approached him on the issue in front of his sister. His sister was present. They were together when this happened, and so of course my natural reflex immediately was like, "Oh my gosh, what? Blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Here's what the deal is. Here's what you did wrong. Blah blah blah." Is that something I should have just pulled him aside and handled privately, or was it okay to keep her there since she was present during the situation anyway? And then would it be wrong for me?
Did she have a part in it, or she just happens to be there bystander?
She was just a bystander at the point.
But your son did it.
Oh yeah, certainly. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's not necessarily any reason why she has to be brought into it. Obviously.
Right.
I shouldn't say obviously, but it may be known to her. I thought you were going to bring up something else where you run into another issue, and that is, let's say you have multiple kids at home, and the cookie jar is smashed.
Okay.
One person broke it. There are 3 kids. They say, Ruvain, did you break the cookie jar? I said, it wasn't me, but it was someone littler than me. That's right. That is Lashon Hara.
Now wait. Even if Reuben saw, Jonathan, steal.
He's not allowed to say. He's not allowed.
Are
to
you
say.
serious?
He's not allowed to say. He's allowed to say it wasn't me.
No way. I see. That's why we're talking today. I had no clue.
That is allowed to say.
Now that's on a minor issue.
One second. If he says it was someone that's 16 years old in this family, that's Lashon Hara, because now you know who it is.
Okay.
But he's allowed to say it wasn't me.
What if it was somebody who stole your wallet and let's say you've got 4 teenagers living in the house, and one of them stole your car and crashed it. Okay, now you ask,
Teenagers are a creation in and of themselves. You can't count teenagers in any of it. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So realistically,
I got a lot of them at home.
Because thinking of it in the same manner, you've got the situation where you've got somebody got hurt, right? Are you allowed to expose, who was the person guilty in that situation like that?
Fighting. Let's say one kid's got a bruise all over them, and they're badly beaten up.
Okay, and you got 6 siblings.
There's 3 kids.
Yeah, whatever.
They're siblings.
Right.
Yeah, there's a sibling fight. You can ask them what happened.
And they can,
right?
and
you can even. I mean, if someone's in danger.
Yeah.
Potentially in danger.
That's the key.
Right.
Yeah.
You throw everything out.
Okay, that's the key.
You throw everything out.
But if it's not a dangerous situation, they're not allowed to say who did it. See, I don't get that. I mean, I'm not arguing with you because I don't know the answer. That's why I'm asking you. But that doesn't make sense to me.
The Torah says do not be a rachil. A rachil means a talebearer.
Okay.
What's a talebearer? Johnny put ants in my food. Right. That's telling on someone that did something else.
Okay.
Right. If someone, if the cookie jar gets broken, and Ruvain, you say, Ruvain, what happened there? He said, Shimon did it.
Mm.
Now, even if Shimon did it, Reuven's not allowed to implicate him straight away. He's not allowed to implicate him, right? That's being a talebearer. He did it. He stole. He did this, right? Now, a parent runs into a problem where when something happens, they ask the kids, all right, what happened? Tell me what happened. And what does it do? It puts the kids in a bad position. Because because one kid's going to say something against the other. Now, you don't necessarily know they're telling the truth or not. And if one of them is lying, that's even worse.
Mm-hmm.
That's even worse because certainly don't want anyone to lie. But you can't, again, unless it's something like totally egregious, you can't ask him and say, did your brother do it? Huh? Did he do it? right? That's all right. Leading the witness, sustained, fine. But he's not allowed to say that he did it. He can say, I didn't do it. They can ask the other brother, did you do it? He can also say, I didn't do it. Then obviously somebody's lying.
Okay, so
right?
so unless it's a legal matter or it's life-threatening or bodily injury is at stake, then you're saying that you just can't say anything.
You shouldn't say anything.
All right. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from. Caller, you are live on the air. Do you have a question for Rabbi? I did answer this, right? Yeah, they're actually watching the video probably. They'll catch us in about 5 more seconds.
I don't hear you.
There you go. Can you hear me now? Caller, can you hear us?
Tommy, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
No, I don't hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes. Of course, you're not going to see me nod for another 20 seconds, but yes, I can hear you just fine. So if once you hear me say that, go ahead and tell us your question, and we'll just disconnect. I don't know why I can't hear you.
Mime it.
I don't hear you.
That's okay. That's okay. We can hear you loud and clear. So go ahead with your question as soon as you're able.
Okay, I'll ask it. Okay, let me ask the question.
Very good.
Okay, my question is this. I hope you're okay. Anyway, my question is this: that if a person is telling that my Shimon took my food or something like that, I understand normally that would not be something that's proper to do. However, what if Shimon will not have any food now if he doesn't tell his teacher that he took his food? So then wouldn't it then be proper to tell him that he should not have to go starving?
That's a great point.
That's my question.
That's great because you go ahead and hang up right now, and then we'll talk about that a little bit. You know, Rabbi, he brings up another interesting point. So, of course, based on what you've told me already, I'm assuming that the answer for the proper way to approach that would be go to the teacher and say someone took my food, not who took my food. I'm guessing, right? But then again, isn't that something the teacher should know? Because technically, that could later on move on into a legal matter where the kid's stealing something and he gets away with it, and all of a sudden he's got a habit of doing it.
The teacher's probably going to ask, whatever. They'll ask him in private who did it. Now, there's a reason why that would be permitted because, again, something like this, may lead to a much bigger problem, and therefore you're gonna have to bring in the parents and whatever, and try and stop it. Who knows what else it could cause? And it could cause tremendous disruption, in the class and everything else. So yeah, it cannot be done in a public manner. Definitely should be done in a private discussion, because if it's done in a public discussion, you run into another problem of potentially embarrassing someone in public.
Right.
Embarrassing someone in public is akin to murder. It's an offshoot of murder. It's not real murder, but what happens? The person turns red when you embarrass them, and then they turn white. When they turn red, what does turning red mean? It's like you killed them. Red blood. Then they turn white because of embarrassment. Some people never ever overcome embarrassment, and it's a terrible thing if a teacher flies off the handle, just loses it or whatever. I know a story of somebody that the head of an institution, the kid was 15, verbally destroyed him in public, in front of other people. That was it. This kid checked out.
Right.
Totally checked out of any authority figure, anything to do with Judaism. Got embarrassed at the age of 15. So, okay, maybe, principal had a bad day. Whatever the case is, you never. It's bad to embarrass someone in general. You never embarrass someone in public. Now, people will say, just on that topic for a second, people will say, you're so sensitive. People make fun of people all the time. What are you getting so upset about? That's a very serious thing.
Right,
I don't care if a person's more sensitive.
Right.
If a person feels that they got embarrassed in front of others, you just took a knife and slaughtered them. And that person may never, ever recover from it. And I know stories People say, oh, you hear things, whatever. I know personal stories that this happened to people and they never recovered.
Right.
They totally never recovered, and they either got embarrassed by their parents, by siblings, by other people. And let's say a child came to a parent to tell them that something terrible happened. The parent never believed them. 45 years later,
Yeah.
this person is still traumatized
Right.
that the parents thought they were a wacko and that they made the thing up when in fact this person was abused as a child.
Right.
And it killed them, and it's still killing them, more than 40 years later. So, that's, Lashon Hara, when you speak badly against someone else, what's the benefit? What's the real benefit? There is no real benefit except one thing. It's not like if I steal money, if you push Granny over crossing the street, you grab her bag, you have something. Well, if she's got money, you got something in your hand. You got something physical. When you speak against someone else, even if it's totally true, what do you have in your hand? Nothing, except one thing. You have the benefit of pushing someone else down at their expense of making yourself look better.
Right.
And that and that in and of itself should also be forbidden for a non-Jew on a moral level.
Okay.
Because what that does is it bullies other people. It makes you feel better at someone else's expense, and who hasn't done that?
Right.
Everybody is guilty of that at some, at some level. So, that's something else that we have to, be cognizant of, of other people's, certainly of other people's family feelings, even if it's not going to damage them in any other way, right? That's, I think that's also an important point as well.
Right. Okay. I want to move this a little further along. Let's say you're in a work environment. You're an adult, or anybody old enough to work, and you saw somebody stealing, or you thought you saw somebody stealing, or just any variable of situation. Let's say you're working with somebody who's lazy.
All right, so I'll give you an example. Let's say the boss tells you that I want you to give me this information or I'm going to fire you. Tell me this information about so-and-so.
Right.
You're not allowed to. You have to give up your job in order to do that.
Wow. You're not allowed to. That's crazy. Okay. All right, let's take this call. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name, where you're calling from.
Yeah, this is Hector calling you from San Antonio, Texas.
Hello, Hector. Welcome back. Can you hear me okay?
Say it again, I'm sorry?
Oh, I guess not. I was asking if you could actually hear me all right.
I missed that, William. I'm so sorry. What did you say?
Actually, that's okay. If you can hear me, go ahead and place your question and then hang up, and then you could listen in. Apparently, I am having phone line issues, and I don't know why.
Oh, my. Okay. Well, question, is Rabbi Tovia?
Sorry, don't hang up. If you can hear me, just hang on. I unplugged the wire because it looked like it might have been loose. So I was trying to plug it in. I actually unplugged it. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Can you hear me better? Can you hear me clearly now?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I guess not. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what the problem is. It would be nice to keep you on the phone long enough to test it, but I don't think that's a good idea. I'm going to have to check it offline. Okay, then go ahead. I apologize with your question, and we'll disconnect.
And say, so William, Sir William.
Yes.
Okay, so you got Rabbi Tovia on with you?
No, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman.
Oh, Coffman, very good. We just had a question about Lashon Hara. When you hear somebody just utilizing Lashon Hara, sins and that kind of thing, what would be the best way to handle that with people, myself, others, please?
That's a great question.
Work and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, actually. Just to clarify, stay on the phone just in case you can hear me a little bit. Stay on the phone. Rabbi, let's say that Javier's at work and he hears somebody else, or somebody comes to him and saying, hey, guess what Rabbi Coffman just did? What is he supposed to do as a listener, as somebody who is an innocent listener, not trying to eavesdrop? What is he supposed to do to that? How does he handle something like that? So... Okay.
He takes out his big fist. He goes, wham!
Okay, let's
Don't
go.
think about my rabbi that way. Kill my rabbi, right?
Okay, Hector, let's go ahead and hang up, brother, and you can listen in for your answer, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Bye-bye. Guys, I'm going to work on the phone lines.
Kill my rabbi. Great one. We gotta mint that one. We'll put it on the Tanakh Talk cups. Anyway, if a person speaks Lashon Hara and you are there listening, right, your obligation 100% is not to believe what's being said, no matter how juicy it sounds. Right? If you can change the subject, change the subject. If you can't change the subject, right, then you're not allowed to believe what is being said at all. If it's something that could potentially damage you, right? Let's say, I don't know, they say this guy's got a whole bunch of guns and he's coming near your house later or something. You have an obligation to guard yourself. Right? You can take it seriously up to a point. You just can't believe it 100%. So, in other words, if let's say someone spoke Lashon Hara and said, "Oh, this guy's not, so scrupulous in business, etc." You were thinking of maybe going in a business deal. You can think twice about it. You can check out other sources to see if he's, the person's reliable or not reliable, whatever the case is. But you can have a doubt. But you can't believe it 100%. If you believe it 100%, then what you've done is now transgressed a Torah prohibition of listening to Lashon Hara. So if you're by the water cooler, someone comes over with a big, juicy piece of Lashon Hara, there's no way you can get out of it. You can't, you can't crawl under the table. You can't fake you're dying or whatever the case is. So you can hold it as a doubt in your mind, but you can't believe it 100%.
Okay, so do you have an obligation when somebody approaches you? Do you have an obligation to tell that person, hey, stop, you're speaking evil?
If you can.
Okay.
If you know the person's not going to listen and they're going to make fun of you more and tell you more stuff, then just duck out of the conversation. Try and get out of the conversation. If you can't get out of it, then take it with a grain of salt. Maybe, quarter of it, maybe you can believe. The rest of it, you can't believe it. There's no other way out.
Okay.
First, try and change the conversation. Again, if you can't do that, then you do your best not to believe it.
Okay. Got it.
No matter how credible it sounds. Because if you do believe it and you take it at face value, then you just transgress listening to Lashon Hara. The other person transgresses saying it. That is no question. The question is, if I listen to it and I believe it, that's a transgression for me.
Okay. Good deal. All right, hang on one second. I'm checking a jack set up here. Okay, that's good. All right, I just unplugged my wires and plugged it back in. We'll see what happens. I put up the wrong ad a minute ago. I said phone lines closed, but they're not closed. We still have the phone lines are open. 855-95-BIBLE, 855-952-4253. If you're calling from a cellular device that does not have the cute little letters along with the numbers. So there. All that in more than one breath, thankfully. Okay, so if you have any other angles you want to cover, either call in,
one thing,
like that right there. But I'll tell you, when you call in, make sure that you don't watch the monitor when you're listening to the phone because you're going to miss us by about 20 seconds. Okay, caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Okay, my name is Shmuel, and I'm the caller who called first. That gave you the idea of what's going on.
Okay, Shmuel, thank you. Can you hear me?
Just as a test for you, so that you should be able to check.
Oh, great.
You can hear, but I can't hear. I still can't hear you.
Man, what a pain in the rump. Okay, hang on. Let me just try to check a few more things here.
Right.
This is.
I can make you out a teeny little bit, like very muffled.
Okay, let's see. I've got my auxiliary turned up. Hang on a second. Let me check one more thing. Aux mixed. Okay, how about now? Is that any better at all? Check 1, 2. Nah, nothing's changing. It could be that my board channel. I'm gonna have to get a hold of my sound tech and have him to walk me through this again. Something must have changed. That's too bad. Okay, well, thank you so much, Shmuel, and we'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you calling back in for a sound check.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
You bet. Bye-bye. Okay, so in that case, let's go ahead and leave the lines off. It seems like this is consistent with the last few callers, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the phone lines off, and we will just continue picking this out. I'll be watching the YouTube chat, so feel free to put your comments there. If you don't mind, but there's a lot of comments going on, put Right to Knock Talk in your comment so it flags me, so I'll know that you're addressing me. And if you have another scenario you would like to have an answer on. So that's what you want to do, is put those on the YouTube chat. And by the way, when you go back to rewatch the video later, you can also turn on the live playback chat, which is cool because it keeps me from having to put the YouTube chat window in the actual video itself, because that's actually a lot more work. So, all right, good deal. So, okay, so we've covered a few different areas. What are some other real life scenarios that you have? Like, for example, here's a good one. This is just a random one. Let's say that I like shopping at Home Depot and Lowe's, but Lowe's doesn't have the greatest customer service, and Home Depot's too high. Is it wrong for me to say anything like, man, Lowe's bites because every time I go there, no one ever helps me, whatever? Is it wrong for me to say something like that to other people who might be potential customers?
If someone asks, about a personal attack, right? You're not allowed to make. If it's something, let's say, how much would what's the difference in price between, this thing in Lowe's and this thing in Home Depot? That you're allowed to say, right? That's something, right. That's something objective. If someone were to say, is it clean in there? What is the cleanliness aspect, of it? So again, if you say something, let's say the place isn't clean, right? You've been in there, that, wherever you shop, the place, is kind of filthy. You have to have seen it yourself. You can't rely on a third party. If you're repeating something, it has to be verbatim the way you heard it, right? If you have to repeat something, you cannot exaggerate. If you exaggerate, you add something, okay, then that's a problem. If someone says, is customer service, do they do a good job, right? Again, you can't, you can't denigrate right. over here. If they, you said I had a bad experience, you can explain the experience, but you can't change anything from it. You can't add, by the way, this woman sounded like a bear. You can't add anything like that. You can say, I was on the phone and this is what happened and whatever, but you can't change the facts. You can't ad lib. You can't ad lib anything, right? So, so if someone would say, well, what's the difference in customer service if you ever had a problem, right? You can say, well, I never had a problem. I had one incident here, but again, if their thing is like that's the most important thing and that's what they're worried about, you can say I had a negative experience. And if you're going to tell over what the experience is, it has to be accurate. You cannot add or subtract, right? That is one of the criteria, and it had to happen to you.
Right. Now, I'm going to ask.
It cannot be second. If it's secondhand, it's no good because that's not accurate.
Okay, I'm going to zoom.
Accurate.
I'm going to zoom all the way out now, real quickly. Now, are there differing everything we've discussed today in the oral law? Are there differing opinions on the details we've covered, like from one sage to another?
No. It's pretty uniform. The only thing I mentioned before first person called was that Ramosha Schneider asked the Chofetz Chaim, why didn't he put in the book that you lose your portion of the world to come? Because it's brought down if a person's a habitual speaker of Lashon Hara, you lose your portion of the world to come. So the Chofetz Chaim said, if I put that in there, it's such a hard thing to fight against, right? Everybody transgresses, right? Some aspect of Lashon Hara. If I would put in there, in the book itself, that a person who habitually speaks Lashon Hara loses their portion of the world to come, then people say, oh, I can't do it. They'll throw off the whole yoke of Torah altogether. But he didn't deny the fact that it's true, right? That a habitual speaker of Lashon Hara loses their portion of the world to come. That's clear according to everyone, right? These other things, these other conditions, right? It doesn't seem like there's too much denigration between rabbinic scholars. The conditions are what they are. Where it's permitted to repeat, what you're allowed to repeat. But again, under certain conditions. Even this is what probably some people don't realize either. Even if you don't mention someone by name, and if you say, where's a good place to to get to get a steak or whatever. You say, oh, Ruvain's always got his grill going. Well, what does that say about Ruvain? Obviously, that's not so good. But let's say you didn't mention him by name, but someone figured out who you're talking about. So you might say that's not a problem at all, right? Because you didn't mention the person by name. Because you didn't mention the person by name, it shouldn't be a problem. But if someone figured out who you're talking about, you didn't mention them by name, that's a Lashon Hara.
Right.
Right? Most people probably aren't aware of that because you said I didn't speak about them. There is one aspect, probably more, but there's one specific aspect where a person's allowed to deride another person, and that's if you're talking about someone who's a heretic. Someone who's what we call an abikor, someone who denies God, someone who denies the Torah, right? Someone like that you're allowed to deride, right? You're allowed to deride, you're allowed to scoff at, you're allowed to make fun of, you're allowed to destroy them, right? In many different ways, because they're making a war against God, whether they do it, because they've learned or they haven't learned or whatever. You can say, why is that permissible? Right? So I would say in theory why it shouldn't be permissible is because if the person learns to speak badly, against this person, he may speak badly against other people. Right? And that's going to lead to worse character traits. So we're always trying to minimize bad character traits. At the same time, someone who openly mocks God, right? They basically lose their status as a human. Doesn't mean you can kill them. Right? Don't put any words in my mouth there. It doesn't mean, you can certainly just blow their head off. At the same time, it's like, they're doing something so horrendous, in mocking God. So yeah, you have the right, for whatever reason, you have the right to deride them, and to mock them. Now, to mock them in front of them, it's going to cause a war. That's a waste of time. Right, but if you want to tell a story about somebody, I always tell this story about a certain conservative rabbi who was really Reconstructionist rabbi. This person, when I got married, embarrassed me in front of 300 people. Right, so imagine what his portion of the world to come is. Anyway, someone said I always use this example by someone who's conceited. Right? He was at a funeral, and someone came up to him and said, "Oh, Rabbi, I see you don't have your rabbinical book." He said, "Here, I have one. You can borrow mine." And the person wasn't doing it to make fun or anything else. Just doing it as a general, a friendly gesture. So this bozo turns around to him and he says, "I don't need your book." He goes, "I write books." Right. Stupid idiot. So what did he do? Tries to embarrass him because this other person wanted to help him. Right. So you say, oh, so you're making fun of someone else. Yeah, because first of all, this person denies Torah. Second of all, he slaughtered me in public. So you say, oh, you're taking revenge. Right. Embarrass someone in public. Third of all, doesn't believe in God or the Torah or anything else. And this is a story to show how conceited a person is. So I wouldn't go around trashing him for any reason, but if I had a point to make about being conceited, that's a good story to use, right? I think that's a very potent story, to use, regardless of what this person may have done to me or not. I think it's a good story, anyway. But others will say, go ahead, deride him. He denies Torah, right? You want to use him as an example, if not, they have what is coming to them because they are evil and they mock God and they make fun and they this and that. Does it mean I should start up with him? No. All right, the person's not alive anyway, it doesn't matter. But would it mean that we should start up with him? No, but you have to call out people that deny God and deny Torah. Now, people may say, this is you may get another whole show out of this, but I think we covered it before, and that is people say, how can you call out somebody, even if they call themselves Orthodox, isn't that Lashon Hara? Now, there's a Torah prohibition of what we call Machtias Arabim, someone who causes others to go astray, right? So there are certain people out there that do mass conversions, in the Atlantic Ocean, that are not done properly. And this person, let's say, they'll call themselves as a rabbi and a guru and a this and a that, and they're a fraud. Is it permissible to call someone out a fraud even if he looks like an Orthodox Jew? Is he causing people to go astray?
That's a good
Yes.
point. Yeah, right.
Is he giving them good information? No. Is a person a menace? 100%. If he's a menace, that's not Lashon Hara. Now, people can say whatever they want about me in social media. That is the halacha.
Okay.
Right? It's not, oh, you're speaking Lashon Hara. He doesn't even know what Lashon Hara is. Do me a favor. Go learn the laws. A person who's a menace causes other people to go after idolatry, causes them to deny God and everything else. They have 100% the din of a maces. Right? Or maces is really for the sake of idolatry. It doesn't matter. They're causing other people to go astray. You can call that person out. Now, is it worth it to do it on social media? Okay, that's a whole discussion, right? Because then it's going to get into a lot of bad blood and people saying this and your mother and my mother and his mother and who knows what, and that's just all Lashon Hara altogether.
Right.
But if someone would ask, is this person, legit, etc., and he's not, you can certainly say he's not. You can even certainly mention him by name, and that's not Lashon Hara because the person is a danger. He's a spiritual danger. If he's a spiritual danger, you're allowed to call him out. That's not a problem.
So
people make this a serious mistake.
Okay, so I'm going to put this next one out of order. I was going to try to do them in order, but this is so on topic. I've got to take it out of order. So one person on YouTube chat, our cartoon president, says, "Is it Lashon Hara to say?" Now let me finish completely before you go. Is it Lashon Hara to say to your friend that open orthodoxy is a heretical sect of Judaism? To refine that, is it wrong to say that Orthodox Judaism is heretical if you disagree with it? So using all those, because it kind of connected sort of with what you were just talking about.
All right, so I'll answer the first part first because I'm in a good mood. So the first part is, imagine if I would have had more caffeine. The first part is that open orthodoxy is a major problem. It's a major problem because it is not orthodox. We just listen to a lot of their statements, that they make. They're causing tremendous, tremendous damage by opening bridges that should never, ever be open. When someone comes out and says Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't a good leader, Abraham and God failed the binding of Isaac. That sounds like a conservative or reformed Jew, right? But these are open Orthodox rabbis making these statements, not just their rabbinic students. I'm talking about the higher ups. So there are a lot of problems, a tremendous amount of problems. So to say that they're not Orthodox, that's not Lashon Hara. That's not Lashon Hara because they are dangerous, right? They are infiltrating Orthodox synagogues. People think they're Orthodox, and they're really not. It's like trying to dress up a banana as an apple and call it a banana.
Okay.
Is it a banana? No, it's an apple.
Okay, so to be fair, first of all, just to let everybody know where I stand. I do stand on the side of orthodoxy. However, to be fair, is it wrong for a Reform Jew to warn other people who are searching for God to stay away from orthodoxy because they're heretical? If that's what they fully believe, then they're not lying, and they think that you're a danger. So where do you draw the line?
All right, so do we believe that the Torah is true or the Torah is fantasy? Did God give the Torah? Didn't give the Torah, right? So they're outside of what Torah is. So they'll say that Orthodoxy is a cult. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that. Oral tradition is a cult. The rabbis are a cult.
Right.
We're all a cult. I just have a smaller yarmulke on my head, but I'm also a cult. I always, force people to listen to me because I yell and scream and people have a lot of fun, right? But they'll claim... that, we're heretical. Okay, so let's have a discussion. See if that's true, right? But, look where it's coming from. We have not deviated from Torah, they have. So, they're calling the kettle black over here. And they say, oh, they're not the real ones, we're the real one. So you want to know if that's Lashon Hara. The funny thing is, if a Reformed Jew doesn't believe in the authenticity of the Torah, they don't believe in Lashon Hara either.
Gotcha.
So for them, they're already outside the parameters.
Yeah. Okay.
If they're outside the parameters, it's not even a fair question. But just to humor you, because like I said, I'm in a good mood, right? Just to humor you, if they would say, well, this is heretical, in theory, that would be the same thing, right? That would be the same thing if it would be. But the fact that it's not a danger, and the fact that it is mainstream, right? If we're talking about mainstream orthodoxy, et cetera, then that's a false statement, right? Then you run into the problem, which they don't believe in any case. But what you get into now is libel, what we call motzi shemra. Motzi shemra means you are destroying their credibility, right? Unlawfully, So therefore that's libel. They're going to say, well, why isn't it libel about open orthodoxy? Because they're a danger. They are a spiritual danger, and I think anyone who knows anything about it knows that, unless obviously you believe in it. But there are many, many things that they say clear as day that is heretical. You get these Reformed people say, oh, look, they believe in orthodoxy, say it better. They'll say, oh, they listen to the rabbis. You're not allowed to add or subtract to the Torah, right? So why doesn't that make why does it make them heretical? I've heard this so many so many times, but again, it's not really a fair question because they don't really, they don't really believe in it. But if someone Orthodox, unfortunately, is heretical, you can certainly call them out. That's not, and unfortunately, there are unscrupulous people out there that don't deserve the name Orthodox or rabbi for that matter, and they're just a fraud, or what I will call a pretender to the throne.
Okay, let's do this. I'm going to move back up now to the first comment by Stan Smith. Is it possible to speak Lashon Hara about yourself? Now, before you take it away, I'm going to step outside for a minute because I left my work truck is outside with all the doors and windows open, and it's just started raining. So I'm going to pass this on to you. Carry it away, and I'll be back in just a few moments.
All right. So there is a question. There is a question that, is a person allowed to say something negative about themselves? Now, it's forbidden 100%. Someone who came back to Judaism, someone who grew up as a non-Orthodox Jew, became an Orthodox Jew, you're not allowed to remind them of what they did when they were younger, right? When they, before they did tshuva, before they repented. Same thing with a convert. You're not allowed to say, "Oh, I remember before you were Jewish. I remember you did this, or I remember you did that." Right? That is certainly 100% forbidden. Now, what if a person says, "Yeah, I used to do that," right? So what is that? That is speaking Lashon Hara against yourself, right? Even if you admit, right? If someone were to ask you, you're now an Orthodox Jew, but you weren't always an Orthodox Jew, and they say, "Did you eat shrimp before?" Now, you could lie and say no, or, in order to have, try and build a, rapport with somebody, you admit that, that you've done that. But then you might say, well, I just transgressed speaking Lashon Hara against myself. So in general, it's not a good thing to do, right? It's definitely not a good thing to speak Lashon Hara against yourself.
All right.
At the same time, if if a person did something that was forbidden, someone asked them. Someone said, did you ever watch the movie Cobra? You could say yes or no, and if you say yes, so you're admitting you did other things, you've done things in the past that maybe you shouldn't have done. So at the same time, even if a person admits that on themselves, you can look at it one of two ways. Either it's going to be a negative thing, right? It's going to be a negative thing you're saying about yourself. On the other hand, it could help build somebody else by seeing that you're 100% real, and they say, wow, go ahead. I don't shop here anyway, right? Yeah, I remember that. Hey, that's great.
That was a good one.
I can really relate to that. Even that, crazy picture you had of yourself with that toothpick. Anyway, we're getting carried away. But even if a person would do that and you say, wow, isn't that Lashon Hara against yourself? Yeah, it is. But at the same time, it has a purpose. And the purpose is that you're telling someone what happened to you, in your previous so-called life that is going to help them, gain from what you're telling them. If you just say, well, I used to do this, I used to do that, I used to do the other thing, and there's no purpose in what you're saying, then that would be more of a, problem. Or, as we mentioned, for other people to remind you of what you've done in the past. That's also, you can't remind someone of what they did in the past. They've done tshuva, they've repented properly, hopefully. So, that's bad. You doing it to yourself, if you have no purpose, that's not a good thing. Definitely not a good thing.
Okay. I'll see somebody had commented again. Oh, real quickly, before I forget, briefly explain open orthodoxy. Question popped up a few times.
Open orthodoxy was founded by someone on the left wing. On the left wing of orthodoxy, different, I guess different aspects of orthodoxy. Some more right wing, some more left wing, right? So it's very much to the left of the leftists in the, in the Orthodox movement. I would probably put them somewhere between, conservative and, and onward, right? They call themselves open Orthodox because, they want to be more, they want to be more open. They want to, push things as far as they can push things. And obviously they have a certain, agenda, right? One of the things, women prayer groups, that's, certainly one thing, that they want to push. But the problem is that, they call themselves more open. But, I'm always fond of saying you can only be as open-minded till your brains fall on the floor. You cannot come out, I don't care who you are, you cannot come out and say, the greatest, almost the greatest of all people, who all the nations are based on, Abraham himself, you cannot say he failed the Akedah. He failed the binding of Isaac. The Ramban Nachmanides says Abraham reached his true potential by going through that last test. He gave 9 tests. He was 9 for 9. Everybody loved him. He was unbelievable in the eyes of all the nations. And the Ramban says, had he not gone through that 10th test, he wouldn't have been as great as he was. Okay. But he was already great. He was already great. You want to tell me that he brought Isaac up, even though he didn't sacrifice him? Whatever the case is. That I would have said, let God cut him some slack. God knows the thoughts of all men, and they're gonna say, listen, he did what he would have done it anyway, even if I would have told him to do it. So give him credit. So the Ramban says you can't give him credit for something that he didn't do. Unreached potential is unreached potential. Had he not done it, he wouldn't have reached his true potential. So why does God send him up there? To have him reach his true potential. You want to tell me one of the father of all nations failed? And God failed? What does that sound like? It sounds like a reformer conservative Jew.
Right.
Moshe Rabbeinu's not a good leader. He had trouble leading the Jewish people. Yeah, why do you have trouble? Because the Jewish people gave him all kinds of problems. You want to say he wasn't a great leader? That puts you in the category of being a heretic.
Right.
So when they make statements like that, not only that, they want to welcome, gay couples into a synagogue. I mean, where do you draw the line? Okay, I know I'm getting past PG-13. Where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? If it's forbidden, you cannot say, well, it didn't really mean that. You have to be all welcoming, and this is some of the things that they're doing. So since they don't draw a line almost anywhere, that's why it's considered dangerous, but that's why they call themselves open, because, again, they're so open that their brains will fall on the floor. So I hope that partially,
that's good.
Partially answers the question.
That's good. We may have to do a full show on open orthodoxy soon. Okay, so we're gonna goal.
Show will 100% get you more than 40 listeners. That I promise you. And then I'll owe you 2 bottles of scotch.
Okay, here we go. Last, you might as well go ahead and send that. You owe me that anyway. Okay, if I know someone is sleeping on the job and putting patients, this is like a nurse's aide scenario. If I know one of my, and I'm guessing she works with this other person, if I know someone is sleeping on the job and putting the patients in danger or neglect, is it okay for me to say something?
Yes.
Okay.
They're putting people's lives in danger.
Right. If a person's bodily safety is in jeopardy.
Yeah. If they're putting someone's, life in danger, someone, drives a forklift.
Right.
It just so happens, he doesn't get enough sleep, and sometimes, he can almost run over people. Should he be reported? Guy's a menace. You have to keep in mind, going to the authorities, turning someone in, is a very big high offense, in Judaism. But if the person's a menace and they're causing danger,
Oh yeah. I see what you're saying. But here's
causing danger to others. You're allowed to tell on them.
Would it not be? I mean, would it be proper protocol though? Like, say you're going to work for them and you see them do it once, and you see it do it twice, and you realize it's a pattern. So then you say something to them yourself first, with hopes they'll listen to you, and then you don't say anything to anybody else. But if they don't listen to you after you've warned them, then take it somewhere else.
Right.
Is that about right? Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. That would be. You don't want to turn them in straight away. If you see it's a recurring pattern, say something. If something doesn't change, and you see it can bring a person to certainly a dangerous situation, then for sure.
Okay, the person that just asked that question says that this person doesn't even listen to her, and she's a supervisor. So if she's a supervisor...
So repeat after me. Be a tattletale. Turn them in. If they're not going to listen anyway.
If you're a supervisor,
anyway, then then you have no choice.
Yeah, if you're a supervisor, it's no longer Lashon Hara. It's more like now it's your obligation to make sure this thing's get taken care of, right?
Right.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Cool. Well, I know this whole topic could go on and on, but we'll try to pick you out another juicy one for next week. So you guys, if you have any ideas for some good,
have other questions. If people have other questions, we can go with this also. There's one there could be other scenarios. So either way.
Right on. Cool. Well, it's been a great show. Thank you all for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you all same time, same place next week. I know Pesach is coming up, and so we'll all be on the schedule around the holy days. Sometimes gets wishy-washy, so I'll try to post videos on what the shows are going to be for each week as we go along. So
go easy on that matz if you're eating it. Go easy.
And remember, it's supposed to be the bread of affliction, not the bread of yumminess. So my wife puts caramel and chocolate in it. Exactly. Thank you all. Shalom.
It goes much better with 4 quarts of wine. It's better.
For sure. Shabbat tov, everybody. Take care. Shalom.
איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה